Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swizz, and I am here on a Saturday afternoon as we count down to the start of Geelong versus Fremantle. So a couple of big things been happening with my team. Thought it's just easy to get on and sort of quickly talk about this. Would have preferred not to be at such late notice, but I have been working, and I was sitting at Flinders Street today and tinkering around my team and thought, you know what, there's a couple of ideas that I could play around with. So that's exactly what I've done. I am gonna announce that. So just a little bit of a chat. The big thing for that we need to talk about before anything is the fact that the subs today is so we've got a couple of big at least exclusions from the subs, which was good. So Murphy, Reid, and Nevitt both not the subs. So it is Clark, and a bit of a surprise in Chapman. Not talking to Damo, he was a bit shocked about that one. So that's just a little bit of a difference there, but that could be good. Thanks Supercoach Pro for jumping on, and everybody that's already jumped on. So I will run through these changes of mine. So the biggest one, and it's a bit of a complete restructure, and you can probably see there in the midfield, but I probably should scroll down. Actually, we'll start at the top. So D6, I was nearly thinking about taking out Perryman, but I kind of really want to keep the 5 defenders in there. I was looking at Sutherland. I'm worried about Colo coming back, so I've kept O'Connell at the moment. It could become Bryce. I'm waiting to see what happens with the Brisbane-Sydney game. We know that's not until 4:10. Subs should be out by about 4:15. So subs should be out by 3:15, 3:20. So I can have a look at where he's sort of named there. But I kind of like the fact that O'Connell, I believe that he's not actually, the sub is likely going to be one of the senior guys. So we'll kind of have a look at how that eventuates for St Kilda tomorrow. But the fact, as I was saying yesterday, that he is named with Sean Makers in, Sinclair's in, it gives me a lot of confidence that they're going to keep going with the Irish boy. So O'Connell is sitting in there for now. If I maybe have a little bit of money and maybe get a little toey about Gawn tomorrow, and depending on the weather, maybe Bo Allen comes in. But I kind of like the idea Bo Allen becomes a bit of a downgrade option as I'm still moving this around. But Connor looks probably the best option in there. Nevitt is going to the bench. Just don't trust him with Clark now the sub. It kind of nearly is a bit of a light-to-light situation. So I'm happy to have Nevitt there. I was maybe looking a little bit Murphy Reid, but I probably trust Nevitt more than what I do Reid going forward. So we're gonna go with that. And then in the midfield, so Langford's come in for Nathan O'Driscoll, and I'm a big fan of Nathan O'Driscoll. Don't get me wrong with that. I don't think it probably suits him today because of the skinny ground at Geelong, and then the Swans. Maybe on the open territory would probably be a bit better, but I'm liking Langford. I am also trying to rearrange to the possibility that Draper isn't named sub. Not many people are looking at Draper. The kid is an absolute jet, but the question is, does he get named sub? So I'm kind of playing around with that. Langford, there's Lindsay, there's Harry Sharp, who's probably going to get a decent role for Melbourne. And then there's also the new boy that they've picked up in the preseason that we're all keen about because he's coming in at 99K. And that is, I was about to call it Hutchinson because I'm so used to talking about the West Coast midfielder who I do like, but that is Jack Henderson. So if he is named and not sub, I'm very tempted to go there and a little bit of a rearrange. And maybe it's just Hasty goes, maybe I don't even pick Hasty, but I do like Hasty. But that also depends on if there is any change there for the St Kilda sub. So there are a couple of the big ones for the rookies, but the big one is the actual why I've had to take out O'Driscoll. And that's because you can see there, Lockie Neale has come into my side. And if I scroll down, Isaac Rankin is the one that's come out. So I've gone actually really shallow now into the forward line with Rankin going out. Now, it's not that I don't completely like Rankin, because I still think if he stays fit, he could be top 6. But the fact that the Crows are naming Draper, Peatling, Dawson, Crouch, Saligo, they just have so many options in there. It does have me a little bit concerned about how much time Rankin's going to have in the middle. I think he could still be really good if he's playing that half forward and being like, your Dylan Moores and your Myers and all those sort of great half forwards that we have in the league. So, he can still go in the 90s. And if he does get more time in that midfield, yeah, he can definitely boost up. But I was playing around with it and I worked out today. I was like, you know what? I really want to have Lockie Neale on my side. I keep looking at that fixture. I was looking at the ownership and he's up to 30% now. And I was like, oh, you know what? bugger it. I'm putting Rosie up to Neale because I had the 130K sitting there. And I was like, you know what? I actually really do want Rosie, so I'm going to move Perryman on. And then I was having a look again. I'm going, you know what? I'd rather keep Perryman and the potential to then move either Short or Perryman or Roberts, whichever one doesn't work out, to get in Finn Callahan or Will Ashcroft, depending on which one goes better, if one of those defenders don't work out. So that's why I kind of like that. As much as I don't want to go that deep in the midfield, it just might be the case where they're the best scorers and I want them. And then I was like, well, who's going to get squeezed out here? Who's the one I don't really like? And it's probably Rankin. And then that also probably leaves me the fact that, you know, Bailey Smith can still come in if he really goes well. And I really like the fact that, having Neale in there as those when it's best 18 against the fixtures that he has, the fact that he becomes a captain person. So that's why he is coming to my side. I really like that setup. So it is pretty full on now in that midfield with Neale, Sarong, Rosie, Oliver, and Shearer. Sardis, he wasn't the best last night. The issue was Redmond played so much CBA. Like we weren't expecting that because they were putting pressure on obviously Day and then Newcomb, who ended up playing some time forward. So Sardis and Hobbs, who should have probably been getting more of that midfield time, only played 57 and 64% respectively. So it was a down for us owners. And I'm kind of looking at past now. Like if Sardis gets another chance next week, hopefully it's not sub, but it doesn't make a difference. But we get another week to look at him before his sort of price changes, and then I can sort of make the call if I want Laylor, if I want to go. So I said Lawler, I should say. If I want to bring back O'Driscoll, if I want to, Sardis is the one that goes out, and I bring in a midfielder and I restructure again. So kind of a bit of forward planning again. So that's how that's end up eventuating. Thank you for the guys. That's just HTC. I actually didn't have Holmes. I talked him up. I was actually bigger on him last year, so that's why I had in my article Holmes. But I actually, I've briefly talked about him, but no, I didn't actually have Holmes in my. Maybe I had when it first opened, I initially had it, but that's probably been it. I was been more on Clark. So Clark was one of the guys I was really big on. Still kind of like him, but there's just so much value there with the three defenders, and the fact that there's these other value guys in the midfield, like say a Rosie, just because obviously Butters being out, Will Day was disappointing last night. He's still got a good draw coming up after his bye, and I did talk about that last night, how he's somebody I might consider, depending on how it eventuates. But I thought this was a period I could leave him alone. So there's still some guys there that could come into my midfield. But yeah, I was Holmes. I wasn't that huge on. I was saying, I think maybe 2-3 weeks ago, him, Nasiah Wanganeen Malira are probably capped at about 105. So that's kind of why I went with it. Supercoach Pro, I still want Tommy on my side, just so burnt last year. Zorko seems safer. Yeah, I think Zorko. And I kind of played around with it too, and I was just like, no, these Brisbane Lions with this draw, and now that they don't have the bye, and I think they're going to be better than last year from that sort of point of view. Like they started this season last year really slow. People forget that. They came home on a house on fire. But they did start slow. They weren't the best team in the competition last year. Obviously, Sydney were that far ahead of them. They could be the best team in the competition this year. I don't really like Cheese. Not keen on Nev over Langford. Yeah, for me, I just thought the worry because Clark is just such a kind of like-for-like option there. I really hope they play Nevitt and they don't do a kind of what Sardis did last night. Maybe I'm just a little scared off by the amount of time on ground that, say, a Sardis and a Hobbs had, and, does Nevitt kind of cop the same treatment? So that's kind of my feeling there. I feel like it's just kind of a safer option. And with the Ds, because they are obviously debuting so many people, it might not be Langford that I start anyway. They could be still mucking around with my side in regards to that, where maybe even if Hasty isn't the sub and he's playing off the halfback role, maybe I'll just take that. Like they're all much for muchness. I think they're probably all going to score similar. It's not out of the complete question that if I look at that Melbourne lineup tomorrow and go, you know what, bugger it, I'll just go and get Bo Allen, but I don't think I'm going there. I feel like I'm not going to, as much as that VC score, I keep looking at it and go, that's a great score to take. I did talk about this last night where I'm like, I'll back Gorney in. Like, what's worst case scenario? Like, okay, he could get injured and go down in the first couple seconds and then we just all look like idiots. And yeah, it's fine, I'll cop that. But if he, plays out the game, you're expecting at least 120, 130, potentially anything up to 200. It's a lot to risk, but at the same time, I feel like the long term on that's probably better instead of playing the guy that's not going to be playing early on. And there'd be nothing worse than Bo Allen sort of, even though it's best 18, Bo Allen just sitting there not making cash, doing anything for the next few weeks because let's just say he doesn't come straight back in next week. So that's kind of a little bit of the thoughts there. And yeah, it's about also getting these best premium players. So as much as ranking can go big. So I do, again, it's not that I don't necessarily not like Rankin. I do like Rankin. But I feel like Neale's capacity in these best 18 weeks is just too hard to go past. And the fact that, 30, at least 30, it might have even slightly gone up now, % of the competition have him. So next week, best 18, and they're playing West Coast at home. Like, unless the Eagles put on a full-on tag, which is probably unlikely, it could be anything. And we do know, again, that round 4 match, I'd like to be bullish about my Tigers. They pulled off the ultimate upset. Exactly, them Tigers. But I don't see us doing it against the Lions. The Lions is just such a professional outfit. And again, Neale, McIntosh put time into Cripps, and the Cripps still went 120. So even if he goes time into Neale, he's probably going 120 plus anyway because he's just that good. So that's kind of where I'm at with them. And I was like, no, you know what? Some of these mid prices, there's got to be a tipping point, and I feel like I'd rather just go a little bit more premium. Now this is a great question. What if Hewitt and Stone are subs? Yes, awesome question there. So I have been sort of playing around with that sort of idea and go, that's because I was playing around with Hewitt being in that midfield. I am also playing around the fact that I want to kind of see where Patton's named. I've been hot on Patton the entire time. So Patton at least does open up the play where I could go Patton and even maybe throw Hewitt into the midfield for now, where if I want to do this whole loophole thing, and I was sending it to the boys this morning, I've gone, let's just say Short stinks it up next week. I want Short out. I want Finn Callaghan out. It could be a case where I go, okay, Sardis out of my side, in goes, or even if it's just the fact of, I don't even actually need to move Sardis. It could just be the fact that, Short goes out, Patton goes back, Hewitt goes in the forward line, and then I get, Callaghan into that midfield or Ashcroft into that midfield. So it is a little of a worry on that, and I do get the discussion. So I have had a look at that. I've had a look at a couple other potential options that rookie price guys I could sort of have in there. But it is a little bit of a stress there. But the great thing is it's the fact that it's only sort of one. I don't need to have both of them on. And the other part is we've got the flex anyway. So if Hewitt or Stone are both named, just like, okay, my flex is going to cover that. Yeah, okay, then I get the 50 from Sardis. Like, big deal. Most people are getting the 50 from Sardis because a lot of them had Reed on field anyway last night for the 45. So, I feel like I can live with that. The flex does open up the fact that it goes, okay, so that happens. Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, I'm probably not going to lose that many points for burning up my team anyway. So, just there's a couple of things going through my mind there. And it also, all these games are all dependent on who gets sort of named. Thoughts on Noah Anderson? Yeah, mate, the fact that he's the captain, I would rather, again, want to see because he has the bye next week anyway. So he has a chance on the road to prove to us why he could do it, needs to do what he can do. Maybe it is a case where it's a Zorko or one of your more expensive guys you could maybe put into an Anderson. I don't really want to start him because I need to see it. The draw is great, but he needs to at least prove it to me one time before I even start considering him. But I do like the suggestion of an Anderson. Ed Richards or Callaghan, that last piece of the puzzle. Because Green is back, I kind of want to see 1 week of Callaghan. So Ed Richards is fine. We knew he was training in that midfield. Isn't the next big thing for the Bulldogs? I know Abs is huge on him. A few other people I talked to are huge on him. So the only thing was the little interruption through the preseason, but I'd rather go Richards and have Callaghan as the backup piece now. Like, Callaghan was awesome, and I'm a huge fan. And as I said, I've picked him up in a lot of drafts. Great player. But Tom Green's back. Let's just see how it fits in. And does he regress slightly, goes back to 100 guy? Even so, he's still pretty good. One's that's slightly back to 95. Just, we need to kind of see how it's going to play out with Green. So that's where I'm at there. And I'll answer a few of these. I know the game's obviously starting. Actually, I might even put the game on here and have a look while we are talking. Hey, Swizz, would you bring in Bo Allen for Hewitt in order to get TD Scott? Like, I'm not against it. I'm leaning against, like, leaning not to bring him in because I like the kind of idea that he could be a downgrade option. So I would rather kind of go there. At the moment, no score in the game. It's just kicked off. So, but like if you, especially if you don't have Gorn, some people talking to me about, oh, I've only got Cherry as my sort of captain option, then I'm probably more willing to do that. But the fact that I've got Gorn and he's up against Keith, I feel that the whole idea of bringing in Gorn was for this moment. And just the hard thing was Conning scored so well. It's like, oh, well, we need to go out and get that score. But, it is a lot to risk for potentially 50 points, but I just like Gorn so much against Keith. Like, look what Darcy Cameron did against him. And yes, some people say it was dry versus the wet, but doesn't that maybe potentially bring more contested footy around? And, they are hitting down to the fact that Gorn hits down to Oliver and Petrarca and Viney and so many options in there. So, it's pretty good. Rankin is one of those. If I take out of the team, I just can't look at the forward. Yeah, and that's fine. And that's a bad pick. I just think best 18 next 3 weeks. I feel like I can do that. I'd rather the sort of the whole Neale thing. Stick with Baz or change. Well, it's a bit hard now to answer that one because the game started, but it's a flip of the coin. I'm not all over that Sanders pick because I think, players are going to come back. So it's a short-term move. You think O'Connell has better job security than Patton? This one I'm on the fence on. The fact that Bice was named, it does scare me just a little bit, and I thought Cunningham's got to come in. But the fact that O'Connell has been named, if O'Connell wasn't named with Sinclair and Sean Maker, it's a completely different story. But the fact that he was, and they clearly want to put Sinclair around the ball, has me more confident that O'Connell is got a more long-term security, because the Saints players that are coming back aren't defenders. It's Henry and I think Butler and Higgins and all the more forwards and Max King. And so those sort of guys, it's more worried about anybody who's in that forward half. And even that sort of Garcia role comes into it, unless they want to put Garcia straight back in that midfield and put Sinclair back. But even then, doesn't O'Connell just potentially push back to the defense, or maybe it becomes him versus Hasty? So I am leaning towards him a little bit more. Like Bice versus Patton's a tough one. And yeah, like in a perfect world, like I'm a big fan of Patton, but it's got me a little bit worried, just the fact that the Bice is in there and that there's guys that could be pushed out because of it. I worry Hasty and O'Connell could get swapped around, and that could be a little bit of an issue. But at the same time, it is also best 18, so it could be a problem too. Yeah, Pryor 50 as well. Yeah, so many of them, just 50. There's similar, all the rookies are going. So it's it seems to be the common theme. As I think we've got a goal there for the Cats first up, and that's Myers. God, he's a good footballer. He's one that, as the season goes on, I actually do want him on my side, especially in that run home when he plays Richmond twice on that run home when we start to fade. Hey, Kev, I traded Sardis to Will Ashcroft after chatting to you. Yeah, mate, good move. I really kind of wish I did it, but I just, who could have predicted that Redmond move? That was the biggest shock, seeing him lining up in that number 1 CBA last night. You just would have thought it was just going to be Merritt, Caldwell, Durham, and then Sardis and Hobbs were going to be the next. So the fact that he was in there, it's quite frustrating. I don't think that's going to be a regular thing. The problem was because they clearly wanted to play Pryor. So they had too many defenders. And I was just chatting to a Bomber support, like a mad Bomber supporter who was at the game last night, to get their opinion on it. And they were saying that they're like, we're trying to work out how they were going to fit all these defenders in, and they clearly wanted to play Pryor. So then what do you kind of do in that situation? And then you push Redmond out. So Redmond ended up having 9 CBA. So it's not like the huge amount that some of the others were getting. And Sardis was still in for 20 CBAs, but it's still 9 that you weren't expecting to sort of have through there. So it really affected, I think, Hobbs' chance. And even the fact that, Merritt got, I know he was tiring and he was cramping up and trying to win the game. So they pushed him forward, and they had Caldwell only 75% CBA and 75% time on ground, even though he's probably the best player on the ground. He probably could have played slightly more, but they had so many midfield options. And I think they actually got the side of the side wrong. I think the rocket up the butt for Gresham probably helped. His second half when he came on was good, but the fact they were trying to fit Ridley and all these guys on, now Ridley being injured, that's probably going to change back to the norm for next week. So I think we'll get a better idea how Essendon sets up next week. But there's a few question marks around their sort of setup, and I think that's sort of a bit of interest going forward there. So that's kind of how I'm feeling around that. So as I said, and this is a hard thing, and that's why I've been trying to get on as much as possible, because it's such a fluid situation. Like we're waiting for subs to come out. We're waiting to see, if where is Bice named, where's Patton named, are they starting? So that all comes into it, as it's 5 minutes in. Geelong about to go forward again. A few handball chains for those who aren't watching, tackle there stops the goal, but they might still get one. The Cats. It's kind of difficult, and I'm trying to give you guys as much of an update as possible what's going on with the team. A few people are messaging me as well, and always happy to take the messages, trying to help you guys out. And people are messaging me saying, "Oh, has your team changed much?" And I go, "Yeah, well, you start playing around with things, and you're kind of happy with it, and then." Sort of good. And I think Chris, here's an update, because he hasn't probably announced that, but what has Chris just kind of done here? Chris is like, Clark on fire early, Bailey Smith goal assist, but actually no, it wasn't him. Somebody just said to me they pivoted to Stewart. Maybe it was Chris, maybe it wasn't. What do we got there? Oh, no, he's talking about this, the first bounce. Stewart's gone back behind the ball. Interesting. Yeah, I thought he nearly said he'd switch to Stewart there after he told me all morning he's getting Bailey Dell in. So, trying to keep you guys updated as much as possible. Have a look at how these subs go. So the only possible change is it's maybe Patton again. I don't mind the idea of pushing Hewitt into the midfield, but there's just so many options. I feel it sort of restricts me a little bit. So there is a couple of kind of worries there. And you are right. The whole sub issue, it could be an issue, but Flynn covers it anyway, and cool. And you never know what the subs do. Like, look at last night. Look, even a great example of this is Thursday night, because everybody, obviously, we all get fear about the subs. Doherty plays one quarter of the game, and what he ended up scoring 67 in a quarter, because he comes on and has an impact. Last night, Gresham plays one half of the game, scores 48, scores as well as some of these rookie guys that we got anyway. So just because they could potentially be sub, it's not the end of the world. Depends on where they come on. So they're rookie price for a reason. And if they're sub first week, there's a chance that they might not be in future weeks as well. So just a few different thoughts about that too. Not to kind of get scared of, but I feel like Stone, yes, he could be, but I'm really thinking it's going to be James Leake. Just fits that so much better. And that's the other part, and that's the hard thing about wanting maybe going a O'Connor, is what happens then if James Leake's named. But so there's all these little things I'm thinking of, but I hope that gives you some ideas, guys. I'm going to sit there and watch the footy now. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Bye.